before I get into the video, I want to thank everybody who had subscribed to me. I had 10 extra subscribers, so that was freaking awesome. I love that you guys did that. I'm really close to getting 100 subscribers. That's kind of my goal, is to reach that before the end of the year. That's just basically the goal I'm kind of hoping for. You know, if I can get 100, that'd be great. If you liked my videos, I hope you guys can stick around, hit that like button, and hopefully hit subscribe. Without further ado, though, let's get into today's video. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I figured I'd do one more of these videos that talks about Xbox. Now, again, there are so many people talking about this big fuck up because it's like huge. And I figured I might talk about it a little bit more, especially when I came across a couple of videos. See, I can't make videos fast enough. I just recently watched this video from Adam Korlick. He talked about a lot of stuff that I was going to try to talk about. I was going to make a video about how that whole thing started and why Xbox is in the predicament it's in. But he talked about it a lot in this video, and also I just recently watched the Act Man's video about it, so I figured I can, like, you know, talk a little bit more. But definitely I'm gonna give it more of a casual perspective from my point of view, because I've lived just as long as Adam. Probably I'm a little older than him, so I can give a little bit more what was going on at the time when Xbox was first released to what has been happening now, from my perspective. Just that's the thing. So yeah, on Adam's video though, he does talk a lot about stuff that I was really going to touch upon. Adam covered a lot of that. I'll leave a link down below to his video and also the Act Man, because there's some stuff in his video too that I want to talk about as well. Let's start with the beginning of this entire endeavor, and we have to go back to the year 2000. This is how I remember it, okay? I remember from the year of 2000 to 2003. All right, this is the time frame between all that stuff. I remember the consoles that were happening at the time, and that was PlayStation 2, PlayStation, Dreamcast, GameCube was about to come out, and the N64. Like, those were the game system I know of. I vaguely remember the Xbox, but I did not get involved with the Xbox until about 2005. I vaguely remember it in 2002, but it wasn't until about 2005 when I knew of it. And but yeah, when my vague memory of it. Now remember, I talked about those other consoles. When I heard about Xbox, I was literally like, when I heard about it, I was like, what's the point of this? And you have to understand, like, back in that early 2000s, Sega was competing against Sony. Those two were like button heads together, kind of like how Microsoft is button heads with Sony now. That was the same with Sega. With the Sega Dreamcast, that was like their last ride with that system, their last chance with that, and they didn't really make it all the way with that system. And so, and like I said, Adam talks about it in his video. I would go watch his, but this is, again, from my perspective. So when Sega dropped out of the race, and then Microsoft came right back in, basically to take in that third slot, I was like, why? What's the point? They're just gonna lose like how Sega lost, because at the time I knew nothing about what Microsoft had. I didn't know what they had at all, and until I heard about Halo. But that was like years later, right? When I first heard about it, I was like, what's even the point of what's the point of this system? If Sega couldn't do it, how is Microsoft going to do it? And I didn't know exactly how big Microsoft was at the time. I wasn't really paying attention at that time. But I was like, how can Microsoft compete if they don't have anything that's eye-catching? Around late 2004, that's when I heard about Halo 2. And that's when I was like, okay, I can kind of see why people like this system. It looks like a very promising system. Halo 2 is a lot of fun. I like the sci-fi-ness of it. I love the military aspect of it. Like, Xbox was cool, like, from my point of view. I remember playing like Max Payne and a few other games that I saw was like, they look crisp and clear, a little, for the time, more crisp and clear than the PlayStation 2. So I was like, okay, I can see why Microsoft is why people like this system. It's a game system for gamers. And so I finally got me one in like early 2005, which is funny because later that year, Xbox 360 would come out. So I kind of got late in the bandwagon with the whole Xbox thing. But the first sign I knew that Xbox was greedy, I should say, was that when you want to watch DVDs, you had to buy a peripheral. It didn't come out of the box just straight up where you can just watch a DVD, as far as I knew. You had to buy that peripheral to unlock the features of playing DVDs. PlayStation 2 didn't have that, but Microsoft did. But anyways, that's my first experience with the Xbox. It didn't really have that many clear-cut games to make me want to have gotten out and bought an Xbox at the time. The only one that did it was Halo 2, and even that was losing its appeal. I had to actually go out and seek games that I didn't already have on my PlayStation, or that would look fun to some capacity that would be on the Xbox. And it was hard to find some stuff there at the beginning, on the, when you go to a Walmart or something, on the store shelves and whatnot. I just remember there wasn't that many eye-catching games, at least from what I can remember. So yeah, like, I really thought, like, if Xbox can't do it in the next console, like, there's not much for me here to really keep this system if it's just going to be a Halo box, And but my friends were all like, no, it'll be more. It'll have more games. Trust me, it's for gamers. The Xbox is for gamers, and that's what I kept hearing all the time. But I started seeing the cracks, and I started seeing the cracks immediately. I didn't know how far it would go, but I definitely started seeing it. I remember thinking that, like, they gotta have more games. At least that's what I thought. And of course, all my friends were gaslighting me, telling me, "Oh, it does have games. It does. You just have to look." And then there was this episode of X-Play that came out, and I can't find the video. I was trying. Hopefully, I could find the video on YouTube, but I couldn't find it anywhere. At least there was an X-Play video or an Attack of the Show video where it was like this battle of the consoles, or the console battles or whatever, and it had Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. And Nintendo came in with like Zelda and Mario. Sony came in with Kratos, and I think maybe Ratchet and Clank or something like that. And then Microsoft came in with just Master Chief. And it was funny because it was like this guy who played Bill Gates, and it was like, "Is this it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm it." And there was like, I was like, "Oh shit!" If they understand that Halo is the only thing that's on the system that sells it, they poked fun at the idea that Halo was the only game for the system. And here I am saying, like, they've got to have more games, or it's just, this isn't going to work, And I said a long time ago. I said that a long time ago. And everybody that I talked to was just like, "Oh no, they got games, or they gaslight me, or whatever." But that's the beginning. Okay, that was the beginning. You had to pay extra for a DVD peripheral. There wasn't that many games. And also, you had to pay for Xbox Live. That was another thing. You had to pay for Xbox Live, which that was the only other good thing that was about the system, that it incorporated online gameplay, or having to play online, a lot better than what Sony did. So that was, at the time, I thought was worth it at the time. So we get into the next part, which I like to call the golden era of gaming. I remember early 2006, I was saving up my money, and I was going to get the Elite, or the 20 gigabyte model Xbox 360. And I was going to start fresh. That was like the key pivotal moment where I was like, well, I'm going all in on Xbox. To me, at the time, that was like the good choice. It was $200 cheaper to get an Xbox 360. You had games like Gears of War 3 in 2006, Dead Rising, and I knew there was going to be an upcoming Halo game. Xbox was like the place to be at. And literally from like 2006 to 2009, I will always reference that as being the golden age for gaming, at least for me, during that time. There were so many great games that came out. I played so many great titles, but it wasn't until late 2009 when I started seeing those cracks again. And it was because of one video game that made me realize that this isn't going the direction I was hoping. This isn't going the way I would like it to. Okay, and that one game is this. And that game here is Assassin's Creed 2. Now, I understand this is Ubisoft, but it kind of all incorporates into one thing. Like, those corporate people talk to each other all the time. But it's because of this game, it made me realize that this whole downloadable content is not going to go the way I was hoping it to go, right? Because every time I heard anybody who would vouch for downloadable content always talked about how it was like, it's giving more to your game. It's like you're getting more out of your game, except you're not. That's the thing. like I said, I've never liked it, and it's because of this game that I've never liked it. When you play this game, there was 2 missions that was taken out and repurposed and resold to you as DLC, as it's adding more to your game. But in reality, though, it is literally sequence 12 and 13. So you go from 11 to the end and skip 12 and 13. You have to rebuy them to play them. Now, you don't have to play them to finish the game, but technically, this game released with missing content right out the bat. And everyone just accepted it, right? And that's what made me like so afraid of what was going to be possible for the future. Because if they could easily do that and everyone was okay with it, what else are they going to do? Especially with it being on the internet. That was the telltale sign that things are going to get worse. I just knew they were. The escalation of DLC content was growing and growing and growing. You know, it used to be when I bought games off the marketplace, it made sense, like the Xbox Live Arcade. It made sense to buy things like Contra Arcade or TMNT Arcade or any cheap game, because it would be wouldn't make any sense to release these games on a full-fledged disc. Like, it would cost a lot of money to do that. These are only like bite-sized games, so yeah, it would make sense to buy like Bank Shot Billiards or Marble Blast, or whatever. It just made sense at the time to do it that way. $10, you get a quick game. But then after seeing that with this game, I realized they could probably make it worse. And nobody wanted to believe me on that one. So then 2012 hits, and I finally sat down and played Halo 4. This has now been taken over by 343 Industries. This is a Microsoft-based company. Bungie had left Halo behind, working on a new project, and 343 Industries were working on Halo. And when I played that game, at first I didn't mind it as so much, but then I started seeing problems with multiplayer, how it's taking on more of a Call of Duty approach to it. And I'm like, oh my god, this is, I don't know where this is going. I have a bad feeling about that. And then they announced the Xbox One. And that's when the shit hit the fan. I'm going to call this part the real Xbox. What I mean by that is, this is what Microsoft really wants the Xbox to actually be. So they go and unveil the Xbox One, and everything in that presentation showed you what they truly wanted Xbox to be from the very, very beginning. Right? They wanted this to be the main focal point of everyone's home. They wanted it to be an all-in-one system where you play your games, watch your movies, everything. That's what they wanted it to be. And what's interesting about that, because I'll talk about that later, that whole model was something they wanted from the very beginning, and they actually touch upon that in a documentary. That's why I was going to make this kind of video, but Adam beat me to it. But that's what they wanted it to be from the very beginning. But there's more to it than that. At least I think so. I don't know. Again, this is all from a casual's perspective. So yeah, Xbox One gets unveiled. Everybody hates it because of the whole DRM policy. You can't play used games. And we all know the whole spiel about how at E3, I think 2014 or 2013, I can't remember which one. I think it was 2013. PlayStation won that war by saying you could play your used games. They came out of that swinging, and they just won the gamers over, right? That was the whole thing. And ever since then, Xbox hasn't recovered until they unveiled what I think was gonna probably get them back on the footing, and to a degree, but I still hated it, and that was Xbox Game Pass. But when that got unveiled, I was like, oh no, this here is gonna get worse. And sure enough, that's where we're at now. So yeah, that's from a casual's perspective. I'm gonna touch a little bit of some certain things that I kind of missed out on, because that was just kind of looking at it from my point of view when I was first released to now, basically up until now. So the first thing I want to talk about is this. I'm going to go back to what the purpose of Xbox is, and how I said, the Xbox One was the real Xbox is what they wanted it to be, is because that's what they wanted the first Xbox to be. Microsoft was afraid of Sony encroaching in on the living room market, and they were afraid of that. They did not like that, because they saw each iteration of PlayStation adding a new feature to it. And so they thought, well, that's how they're going to get into the living room market or get into the market of PC, was because the next one's going to be better than the next. The first PlayStation is where you play games and you can listen to music. Then the second one had it where you can play games, listen to music, and play DVDs. And the third one was like, this could be more of a computer. So yeah, they were worried about that. And everyone, Adam talks about it. Yeah, the documentary, they talk about it. And I think that's why that became Xbox's inevitable downfall. So basically, yeah, Xbox's brand was supposed to be a stopgap so Sony wouldn't intrude on the PC market. That was the whole point of it, right? Because and again, Adam talks about it. You see, the PC gaming back then was not that great, right? It just wasn't. For a casual person, at least at the time, you're going to be hard-pressed to explain to them what's the difference between having just a PC and that PC needing a graphics card. PC gaming at the time was just very, very difficult, okay? You didn't know whether the game was going to work or not. You didn't know if you had the right computer or not. You didn't know anything. I mean, for me, it was like I didn't know if I had the right processor. I didn't know nothing about graphics card. It was pretty expensive to add all that stuff. So from a casual perspective like mine and my parents, it was just easy to pay $300 to get a PlayStation, buy a game, and it worked when you got a home. And heck, you can even rent games out, right? So early PC gaming was very off. In fact, there was a time when it was probably people thought it was going to die. Heck, I still even have the magazine that even talked about it right here. See, right here. I don't know if you can see it because of the glare. It says, "Is gaming PC dead?" or "Is PC gaming dead?" Which is funny over here because it already says here, has the PS3 already lost, And that's kind of how it was back then. People thought that PC gaming was not going to survive. It wasn't until Steam came around and changed all of that. Literally came around and changed all of that, right? Gaming was becoming more accessible to people. And that's, I should also bring that back up. PC gaming now is a lot better than it was in early 2000. In fact, for a casual like me, I can go in and get a decent computer to play games that I want to play and find things throughout the Steam store and play them, right? Back then, though, it was very, very different. I can't stress that enough. And that's why Microsoft was afraid of, was that Sony could capitalize on that. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to see the foresight like they have if in terms of what the PC gaming market was going to be. And that's kind of why Xbox exists. But thanks in part because PC gaming has become very good, very mainstream. You can go in and buy it. You can go into a store and buy yourself a good gaming PC, way better than it was in early 2000, thanks in part to Steam. That model, that Xbox model, is outdated. Its existence is based on an outdated model. And I think they kind of know that. I think that's why they're pushing so hard for Xbox Game Pass and for Xbox Game Pass to be everywhere, is to keep that brand there. Microsoft was, I think they were really banking on, if they were buying all those studios and having all that brand on the Xbox Game Pass, that would make people want to shift into Xbox Game Pass. That, like, they're all in on that Xbox Game Pass. I can't stress that enough. Which is funny because the Ackman mentions something like this.
There's no way things could continue unless they raised the price. If only they could offset this by selling consoles and video game copies. Kind of like how Costco sells that hot dog for $1.50, but they offset the cost of that by everything else they sell.
Except they don't want to do that anymore. If he's talking about physical media, I think they've completely abandoned that. I have seen a lot of stores downgrade and downsize all their physical media. Walmart, my local Walmart has done that. So I think they're stepping away from physical media. But if he was talking about digital media too, I think they're wanting to step away from that as well. Like I said before, they're all in on Xbox Game Pass because you can play this anywhere. You can play it on your smart TV. You can play it on your portable devices. They have like a portable device that they are talking about, even on your Xbox console and now on PC as well. They're making where Xbox Game Pass can be everywhere. That's what they're banking on. So when I say that's the future they want, that's what they want. They don't want to go back and sell games anymore like they did before. That's like a losing battle for them. They want subscription-based services. That's what they want to do because it can reach more people than selling physical media and digital media. They're trying to do a shotgun approach and try to get as many people as possible, but I think they're failing in doing that. The appeal of a person always buying a monthly subscription service to always constantly buy something, that constant cash flow, is a lot more appealing than to sell one game one time and that's it. They want maximum profits for as little time to put into the product, basically. Gaming is not what I'm going to tell you this right now. Xbox will not pivot from this idea. They are not going to pivot from this idea. They're too far in. They are not going to change. All right. They are looking towards that future. They are looking toward that future to being a subscription-based model program. That's what they want. They're all in on Xbox Game Pass. And that's what they want. They may not stop it. I've heard somewhere that they stopped the whole idea of price hikes, but that doesn't mean they're not going to try to do it in the future. And that may be where they're going to do from here on out. They don't want you to buy your games physically. They don't want to buy your games digitally. They want you to just pay monthly for a game that you won't own. And that's what they want. I actually like the idea of what Game Pass is. The concept is such a brilliant concept, right? The whole idea is very, very brilliant. Except it's just executed poorly because of incompetent corporations. It's just executed in such a poor manner because of greed. But what's so funny about the Xbox One and its reveal, Angry Joe, I was watching a video about Angry Joe's rant about it, and what was interesting about that entire rant about how it had to have DRM, hourly checkups to make sure you own the game and all this other stuff. I started thinking, like, was it possible that this was the early beta version of that Xbox Game Pass? Like very, very early stages? It would make sense. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But it's kind of odd. I don't know. Xbox is in a tight spot right now. I don't know what they're gonna do. I really don't. That's another thing that Xbox can't seem to do. They have all these great studios, but they lay off people. Right? There were so many games that got canceled. Anybody remember Scalebound? That got canceled. Everyone was excited about that one, but that got canceled. Perfect Dark, that got canceled. They had the footing, and they just lost it. Completely lost it. I don't know. I just want to come back in here and talk about it real quick from my point of view, from that time when I was growing up with it and seeing the whole thing. I don't know what Xbox is gonna do. I don't think they can get away from this. I think they're kind of in a rock and a hard place. I don't know what they're gonna do. Anyways, that's it for today's video. Hope you all enjoyed it. I'll see you guys all in the next one, and you all take care.